Now, for countries which have achieved this mark and which have managed this kind of an growth, the recent example is China. We always compare India and China on just about everything. And the factors where I would like to again compare India's challenge is land, labor, interest, and tariffs. These are four factors which essentially will decide where we are headed. So let's talk about it. Land cost, labor cost, stroke productivity, also interest cost and trade barriers. How do you see these four moving parts moving?
Okay. So let's begin with land. To me, I think right now, this is one of the most constraining factors. Labor also, but land, I think. In India, urban land is extremely expensive. One way to gauge it is that the rental yields in most of the important cities in India are about 2 to 3%. Interest rates, 8%. There is no way you can have viable commercial rental housing, which I think is incredibly important. I mean, in the ultimate, when the economic transformation happens, workers move out of agriculture into industry and services. This also means migration of the workers from the rural to urban spaces. You need to house them. Where is the rental housing where they would go? This is where you then start creating these slums, etc. Because the migrant workers cannot afford terribly expensive housing. So urban land is a very big issue. Our urban land markets are very distorted for a number of reasons, which are all solvable, a little complicated, but solvable. Things that can easily be done. FSI in India, we are the only country where in any city, the central business district generally has an FSI of 1.4. When we allow the taller buildings, we go outside the city. But hardly any city in the world is built that way. It's usually the central business district where the FSI is much higher. And as you go into the periphery, then the FSI declines. We have done the exactly inversion of that. So that's one way to address the urban land issue. I think Bombay is beginning to now. I see a bit more, compared to 10 years ago, I see many more taller buildings. But still, not in the central business. You go to South Bombay, that's still very, no high buildings. So that's one. But also land conversion rules, both in terms of from agricultural to non-agricultural uses, but also within city from one use to another use. Buildings that, are being used for conventional industry, it should be possible to convert those into something else if economic activity points in that direction. But we don't easily allow this conversion. So that has to happen. Railways, defense, these departments have a lot of urban land under control, unused and therefore unproductive asset should be brought onto the markets. A lot of public sector enterprises, some functioning, some not even functioning, some even private enterprises have a lot more land than they need. That land should come on the market. So many different ways to solve that problem. So that's one area. Labor we can talk about. Labor laws, have been passed by the parliament in 2019 and 20. 4 codes. Those are solid codes. I think it's time to implement those. I sort of understand that the government had simultaneously also passed the farm laws, which got then challenged, and the government ultimately felt that they had to withdraw them. After that, government probably got more cautious and did not go ahead with the implementation of labor laws. But I think now, elections are over, mostly, and in next year we have only Delhi and perhaps Bihar elections. So I think this will be a good window the next year to implement the labor laws. So that trade, I think, is a little more complicated.
So trade, if I could just